Howdy y'all, Caleb here, and I wanted to do a quick video on the Stegadons. As I'm trying to figure out what unit I want to put in my Bounty Hunters Battalion, which gives you +1 damage against Galician veterans, Stegadons come to mind. I like to run Thunderlizards. I love Stegadons. And in Thunderlizards, Stegadons become battle line. They lose the behemoth keyword for the purposes of list building and become battle line, which means you can fit them into certain battalions. This is very similar to how we did Hunters of the Heartlands before, where we can make them immune to monsters' actions. We're losing that one in the new edition, but the new edition comes with Bounty Hunters. So let's look at real quick what this battalion is. 2 to 3 troop units. They do not need to be Galician veterans. The troops inside gain +1 damage in melee versus Galician veteran units. And so our Stegadons are going to be, well, let's see if they're going to be good at being a bounty hunter. The thing that makes this attractive is that they have a lot of attacks for a monster of this point of value. So when we're looking at our Stegadon War Scroll, this includes both the Chief and the normal battle line one. But we've got 2 attacks from the Horns. We're going to have 3 attacks from the Jaws because we get +1 from the Coalesced. You get +1 Jaw attacks. And then we have 5 crushing stomps there for that melee. And all of these do at least 2 damage. So you're talking about a total of 10 attacks that are all going to get +1 to their damage. Now the Horns start off at 4, but if you've played much Stegadons as I have, for some reason the Horns always miss. I think it's because it's that massive damage you're looking for. Those ones always seem to miss. But lots of attacks, which makes it good. It goes into this battalion quite well. So now all these attacks are doing 3 damage each, with the big horns doing 5. All of a sudden, that's real juicy. Not to mention we still have the Sky Streak Bow. That won't get any bonuses from the Bounty Hunter unit, but a great weapon to use with Stegadons. We've talked a lot about Stegadons before, but the way I end up using them is I shoot for 1 or 2 turns until I can line up that nice charge that I'm looking for, and then send in my Stegadons while they're buffed up and take out a unit that's important that's been lined up there for me. So Bounty Hunters, they can fit into Bounty Hunters since they get the battle line keyword instead of Behemoth in Thunderlizards. That's the only place you'll ever see them in Bounty Hunters. Let's look at real quick at what their War Scroll looks like. Unbuffed, to be honest, it's a pretty bad War Scroll. You're only looking at 7 damage versus a 4-up save, even with all those attacks, because it's very poor rend, 3s and 3s to hit. It's not real impressive there for a big monster like this. But there are plenty of ways to buff it up, including our just your standard +1 to hit command point. You can always get access to that. But we also have a +1 to hit from a Skink Priest that will carry over through shooting, through melee, and all the way until our next hero phase. So if you have enough Skink Priest on the board, make sure you pop that onto one of these Stegadons because it is a nice thing to have. Plus, you can also get run, shoot, and charge, which makes these things a lot more mobile, and you can get them to where you need to. The Skink Star Priest, now this goes in just about every list and has just amazing buffs. The reroll hit rolls of 1 from its spell Hand of Glory is amazing, especially when you have a bunch of attacks. Serpent Staff gives us mortal wounds on 6s to wound. Those are really good. The Stegadon doesn't have as many attacks as other people do, other units that will probably be wanting to use that Skink Star Priest buff for, but it can go on the Stegadon if you need it to. The real good one, though, is +1 to attacks from the Stegadon Chief. So a lot of times when I run this, I'm running my Stegadon Chief, and he'll be running along with another Stegadon or even 2 Stegadons if I'm going for a fun monster match list. This may not be as prevalent in this new edition because there's not as much stuff that monsters can do in the new General's Handbook. But I still think it can be fun. Definitely a narrative or a casual list, but one that still has some teeth and can punch. So that Stegadon Chief gives them extra attacks. When you've got 3 different profiles in melee, you're adding 3 more attacks that are all doing multi-damage. In Bounty Hunters are doing at least 3 damage. And so that can really be beneficial. We do lose the realm command ability that let a monster fight at full bracket. I use that a lot on these Stegadons because I would charge 2 in I would fight with one, and then they would get a chance to fight back, and then usually they wouldn't kill a Stegadon if I was playing well. And then I would use that command ability on that Stegadon to let him fight full bracket. So I'm really going to miss having that extra ability, that command ability to let him fight at full bracket. That one hurts. We're not in the monster meta anymore, and so as we could expect, monsters aren't going to be quite as good. If we add some buffs here, here's some of our damage numbers for a Stegadon. We got +1 jaw attacks, Priest to give it +1 to hit, Stegadon Chief +1 attacks, and then Star Priest, those standard buffs for rerolls and mortal wounds. This is a lot. This is usually what I would be doing if I'm buffing up a Stegadon, and I know that, you know, I've got a target of opportunity. I'm sending the Stegadon in. Let me apply some of my buffs over to this Stegadon and send it in. But still, to be honest, not super impressive. You know, we're more than doubling the damage if this thing was doing. It's doing almost about 16 damage versus a 4-up save. So decent, but to be honest, not really all that good. I think Stegadons did well in this last edition because they had utility as monsters. The shooting helps, and then they could do some damage. If we put them in Bounty Hunters, though, we're getting that extra damage. Here's all those same buffs. We got Coalesce, +1 Jaws, +1 to hit, +1 attacks, the rerolls from the Priest, Mortal Wounds, and Bounty Hunter Battalion to give +1 damage. And we're only up to about 21 damage versus 4. To be honest, I thought it was going to be more. You know, when I started this video, I was running the numbers. I was kind of getting excited. Like, this is going to be my default option for Bounty Hunters. And to be honest, with the Horde meta we're in, I don't know that this is going to cut it. It's still going to be fun. Don't get me wrong. If you've got 270 points now, they went up 5 points. It's still going to be a lot of fun. And you might pop it off and hit really well and get all those horns through. But we're going to have things that are going to hit harder than a Stegadon, even when it's juiced up, even when it's in Bounty Hunter Battalion. So 21 damage, just I was a little disappointed. I mean, hey, it's still 21 damage. That'll kill a lot of things. Don't get me wrong here. Maybe I'm being too needy here. I'm used to too much damage, but I want more. Especially when I was running the numbers on like Warriors and Guard. You know, they're doing more than that. And, you know, obviously we're not getting like God tier level buffs here, but we're just, you know, some standard buffs, and you're going to get higher than that on some of our other units. I haven't run the numbers with Knights and Kroxigor yet. They're coming up next. So we'll see how the Stegadon stacks up against those units. But I think they can fit pretty well into a battalion if you're looking for a fun list here. 2 Stegadons, or even 3. You could fit all those in Bounty Hunters. And you can have a fun time here. Take a couple of units of infantry for your Galician veterans, and then send your Stegadons hunting all around the board for those other Galician veterans. It could be a lot of fun, especially if you're slamming in 2 of these into a unit, or this one and the Stegadon Chief. And don't forget, you're still getting some damage on shooting, some damage on the charge mortals. You can still roar and stomp, so you're getting some mortals that way. So you still have some other chip damage to do there, especially when you're kind of bringing like more than one Stegadon. But probably not our best option anymore, but still a really fun one. All right, guys. See y'all next time.